The rebellion that destroyed Soviet Russia suggests an exploration of a singular, pivotal event that led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. However, the dissolution of the Soviet Union was not caused by a singular rebellion, but rather a complex interplay of political, economic, social, and international factors. Here's an overview. Economic stagnation. By the 1980s, the Soviet economy was in decline. Centralized planning, inefficiencies, lack of innovation, and a heavy reliance on raw material exports contributed to economic stagnation. The arms race with the US also drained the Soviet coffers. Political rigidity. The Soviet political system was marked by a lack of political freedoms and human rights. Dissidents were often imprisoned, and there was no free press. Over time, this resulted in growing disillusionment among the populace. Nationalism. Various republics within the Soviet Union, such as the Baltic states, Ukraine, and Georgia, began to demand greater autonomy or even independence. Ethnic and national tensions, which had been suppressed during the Cold War, began to resurface. Mikhail Gorbachev's reforms. Gorbachev's twin policies of glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring, were intended to revitalize the Soviet Union. However, they inadvertently accelerated its demise. Glasnost led to an open discussion of the USSR's problems, while perestroika tried to reform the stagnant economy. Role of the media. With the introduction of glasnost, the media began to report on previously taboo subjects, including government corruption, the negative aspects of Soviet history, and problems in the economy. This further eroded the legitimacy of the Communist Party. International pressures. The Soviet Union's Eastern European satellites began to break away in the late 1980s, most notably with the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. The USSR was unable to stem this tide of change, signaling its waning power. Internal dissent. Prominent figures, such as Boris Yeltsin, began to challenge the central authority. Moreover, mass protests and civil unrest became more frequent, especially in the Baltic republics and the Caucasus region. Economic collapse. By the early 1990s, the Soviet economy was in freefall. Shortages of basic goods became widespread, and there was a sharp decline in living standards. Collapse of communist rule. In August 1991, hardliners attempted a coup to remove Gorbachev and reverse his reforms. The coup failed, largely due to public opposition, and it marked the beginning of the end for the USSR. Following the coup, Boris Yeltsin emerged as a key figure, and the power of the Central Soviet government waned rapidly. Official dissolution. On December 25, 1991, Gorbachev resigned as the president of the Soviet Union. The next day, the Soviet Union was officially dissolved, and 15 independent republics emerged. In conclusion, while there were moments of resistance and rebellion against the central authority, the collapse of the Soviet Union was a multifaceted process, driven by a combination of internal and external pressures.